this is super random and unscheduled, but I hope you appreciate it. So I get a lot of questions every single day from searchers on, especially on LinkedIn, Search Funder, and a lot of these questions happen to be the same. And so I am so far behind on answering these questions that I've thought that, maybe I'll step in and try to do either a live recording or just a pre-recorded YouTube video every single day and try to address these so that hopefully they can help as many as people as possible, since it's taking me so long to get back to everybody's messages. So if, especially people on LinkedIn, if you've messaged me within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I still haven't responded to you because I'm like 300 messages behind. So apologies, but I will get there. And you may have noticed that there's a little version of me down there. This is how unexpected this is. I'm actually recording on Loom and then on Restream so that I can like hop around and share screens and stuff. But anyway, what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about off-market sourcing. How do you find off-market deals? And so this is one of the questions that keeps coming up over and over and over, and it makes sense. When I was a first-time searcher, this is one of the things that like no one really shared the tactics. It was hard to get people to tell you like, what's their toolbox, what are the things they're using to find off-market deals. So that's what this question is. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen here and kind of walk you through some of the stuff I've been looking at. So as you can see, just a few days ago, I put out this survey on my newsletter, and only 20 responses, but that's pretty material given the amount of people there. And you'll see the vast majority of people, they're searchers. They're first-time buyers, they're searchers, and they're actively searching. So you can see 12, 16, and then the questions that keep coming up over and over and over are, they tend to be the ones you'd expect. Sourcing. How do I source deals? And then, structuring and due diligence, which makes sense, and working with investors. But one of the top ones is always sourcing deals. Like, how do I source deals? How do I find deals? And how do I do that off market? And I thought about this because I was just over here on Search Funder. I saw the exact same question, which is like, hey, I'm searching off market and I can't find good deals. And what kind of tools is everybody using? So let's start walking through these. So one of the latest questions I saw here on Search Funder, which goes hand in hand with this, which is thoughts on Clay versus mail merge and cold email and outreach. So here's my thoughts, and I'm just going to walk you through some of the things I'm using, as well as some tools that work really, really well. If you're a first-time searcher and you don't have a lot of money, you're self-funded, and you want to kind of get your funnel started. So here's where I would start. I would start with Clay. If you are unfamiliar with Clay, this is what the home looks like. It's clay.com. This one is actually clay-cohorts.com. If you're new to Clay, highly recommend going to Clay Cohorts and joining up with one of their cohort classes. They walk you through how to use it. You're getting a really, really good in-depth analysis on how to use the tool and how to get started. But the point is that Clay itself is relatively, I think it's free to actually use it. There's a lot of tiers in here, but the thing that makes it really helpful is that you can use it for sourcing different companies, all off market, on market, whatever the case may be, but it allows you to kind of use third-party tools a la carte. So for instance, if you're used to paying for things like Apollo or PitchBook or any of these other public data aggregators like enrichment tools, like email enrichment, things like that, you don't have to pay for all of those subscriptions. Instead, you can use the integration that's built in with Clay and use them when you want to use them. So for instance, and this is just an example, but instead of paying $15,000, that's for a little high, but $15,000 a year for PitchBook, instead you could bring up a list of target companies that you're looking at, and then you could say, hey, I want to use 8 Clay credits to enrich just this one company using PitchBook data. And so that's what I mean by using that same tool, but a la carte. And so it does end up being more expensive that way. So if you have something that you're using a lot and this third-party tool, then it still makes sense to go ahead and get a full subscription and then integrate that subscription in with Clay. But if you're not, if it doesn't make sense to have that tool full-time, then you can just use it targeted. And I like that a lot. I think that makes a lot of sense. And the amount of Clay credits you get depends on the tier you're in. So you could pay as little as nothing and just use free integrations or integrations you've already paid for and source those in. Or you could pay $300, $600, $900 a month. I think if you really want to bust it out, you could pay $1,200 a month, and then rack up a bunch of extra credits and really dive deep into a lot of the data enrichment tools they have. Might be overkill for what you're doing, but at least you have that flexibility. And so this right here, this is just an example of a spreadsheet that I pulled up. So I'm going to kind of close this here real fast, but this is a targeted search I did on aerospace and aviation companies. Specifically, I was looking for companies that do aerospace manufacturing. And when I put this filter together, I wanted to pull companies that were based on employee size, and that were privately held, and then start filtering from there. And so that way I could kind of start targeting in on the size of business that I'm looking for. And so I could pull up this list. This list is right under 3,000 targets. As you can see, I got the name, I got the website, they pulled in a description for me. So I actually used one of the enrichment tools to kind of pull all this stuff out. And then as you scroll aside, you'll see that I've got the location, I've got the website domain, I've got the LinkedIn URL, I've got a LinkedIn Sales Navigator integrated into this, so I can pull all the LinkedIn data. It's going to show me headcount. And then as I keep scrolling, I can start getting creative with these columns. So everything from here, and I hope you can see my mouse, but everything here from here to the right, these are all columns that I put in myself. And so I said, hey, based on this data, what's the projected annual revenues? And again, these are all estimates. Every off-market data source is going to give you their best estimate since it's not public, but it's at least it's going to get you in the ballpark. So I can get an idea of that. And then I start putting together my own tools. So, for instance, right here, you see there's this column called Strategic Fit Score with an OpenAI logo. And so if I click on this, I'm going to kind of show you what I did here. But I said, hey, given all the data that I've already pulled, I'm going to integrate OpenAI here. I'm going to say, hey, here's my prompt. You're an M&A analyst evaluating companies. Here's the things you're looking for. And I built this obviously based on what I'm looking for. So I'm like, hey, based on the revenue, I want you to bring in the revenue, the EBITDA. I'm looking at things that have offshoring potential. I'm looking for specific types of year-over-year growth. This is aviation, so I'm interested in things that are ITAR status, things that have AS 9100 certification. I'm looking at things that have different types of leverage risk. And you can see there's variables here because I'm pulling those in from across the spreadsheet, but it'll make sense. And then based on all that data that's in the spreadsheet and that I've, asked ChatGPT to look at here, I said, hey, give me a scoring rubric. If more than 50% of the revenue comes from aerospace and defense, 15 points. If there's potential to offshore later on, say like it does a lot of manufacturing and maybe we can, it's growing and it's going to need additional space in the future, maybe that's a possibility. And then I just keep going through like line item by line item. Like I want to know, is it already certified? Are they ITAR restricted? What's their customer bed look like? And again, this data is not going to be perfect. I'm looking to be able to take as many of these leads as possible and put them into overall buckets that have a higher likelihood of being what I'm looking for. All right. So, and then I tell, hey, ChatGPT, go find this. And so as you can see, I set my data here and I hit save. And so based on this, what this particular column is doing, it's taking all this data, and then it's also using a web scraper, and ChatGPT is going to all of these individual line items, all these companies. It's looking at their domains, their LinkedIn, all the other information that's in there, and it's pulling all that back and it's inferring a score. So you can see right here, like a score 85 out of 100, score 80 out of 100, 73 out of 100. And it doesn't always work. So you can see right here, this one says, to evaluate the company, I need more data. Like it's like, we couldn't do it. It says this one tried but failed. But most of them, they're going to work. This one even apologized. Hey, I'm sorry, but I couldn't pull the specific data. All right, cool. Anyway, so what that did though is like when I actually pulled this, it gave me a relatively decent fit score for about 75% of the companies on my list. So that's huge. And then I cleared it up. I said, all right, well, on this one, I did the same thing. I said, hey, was this business involved in an acquisition within the last 5 years? Because I want to know, one, have they been purchased recently, i.e. they're probably not interested in selling, or if they've been purchased, more than 5 years ago, or right around the 5 to 7 year mark, then maybe they're owned by a PE or a group that might be looking for a liquidity exit. So potentially they might be looking to sell. And so it gives me that answer right here. So here's the query for that. And then again, these are just the ones I have right here, but you could, the world is your oyster. Whatever you want to put here, you can figure it out. And so you can put all this information in here. And then I have a whole different spreadsheet where I took these different companies and I pulled them out into this one. I said, hey, find all the people. And this is what's called a waterfall enrichment integration. So I said, here's all the people who are identified in LinkedIn Sales Navigator as being the founders, owners, presidents, CEOs, etc. You can see based on their job title right here. And I said, bring all these together and use all the integrations that Clay has available. You can see there's all the different integrations here. It says go one by one and find their work email. That way I can actually build an email list and reach out to these people. And so, it'll try. It's like, hey, did I find it here? Yes, then I'm done. No, then move on to the second one. Yes, done, etc. That's the waterfall. And then when you're all done, you end up with a list right here of all their work emails. And from what I can tell, there we go. From what I can tell, I get about 65 to 75% accuracy. It's pretty good. So if you have integrations with Apollo, if you're used to using that, or any other kind of like third-party email enrichment tool, then you can integrate those here as well. But I like using as many tools as possible because, again, none of them are perfect, and so finding the best consensus of all of them is usually going to give you the best outcome. It costs more, but that's the price you pay for having a better email list. So this is Clay. This is not designed to be a tutorial. I'm definitely not going to walk you through how to use it. I'm just basically saying, hey, this is a tool. Highly recommend you go look at it. Personally, I think it's the best tool on the market right now when it comes to go-to-market sourcing. So, a lot of sales professionals are using it, but, hint, hint, you're a searcher, so sales, that's your job. So your job is to go out there and find these companies. So I really like Clay. I think it's really great. Highly recommend giving it a shot. Now, if you decide to use all the enrichments, then the price tag definitely goes up. Like I said, if you're going really deep on enrichments, like you can easily spend $1,000 to $2,000 a month just on Clay enrichments. I mean, you're going to get 50,000 potential targets, and you're going to get a lot of data on them, but it's going to cost you a lot. And so if you're spending that much, you're already at the same level as like getting an annual subscription to Grata or something like that. And so at least with Clay, you can kind of decide how far you want to take it. But again, if you're a self-funded searcher and you're thinking, hey, I need to save as much money as possible, then I recommend, getting the free version of Clay, integrating, third-party tools that you're already using, and then just being very strategic with your a la carte enrichment suggestions to be able to get the value that you need so that you're not wasting money enriching data that you don't need. So for instance, one of the companies that came up on this list was Boom Supersonic. Boom Supersonic. So obviously not a good target. If you know anything about Boom, they're building supersonic jets, and they've got a lot of venture capital, and I highly doubt I'm going to be able to take them down in an acquisition. So not a good target. So when I see that come up, I want to remove it from my list. I don't want to waste money enriching that data. And so, as a self-funded searcher, be really clear about, pay attention to the data you have and don't waste money enriching data that isn't going to help you anyway. So anyway, that's Clay. So this is my process. Step one, I use Clay for sourcing and enrichment. Step two, if I want to bring in more enrichment, I integrate with Apollo. This is Apollo. A lot of people are really familiar with Apollo. If you don't know, Apollo is essentially a data collection website, and they kind of got their start by scraping all the data from Meta and a few other like social media platforms like several years ago, and now they just resell that data to you. It's pretty decent. It's not particularly cheap. It's like $99 a month. So it is what it is. You can use it. A lot of people use it. If you find that here's another hack. If you find that Apollo is something that you're using to like either source companies or people, but you probably want to like try to save a little bit more money because again, maybe you're on a budget because you're a self-funded searcher. Highly recommend looking at Appify. Apify. Appify. Appify is a aggregator website for web scrapers. You can basically developers come in here, they build web scrapers for almost anything. You can web scrape anything, including Apollo. So one of the things that people did is that they got kind of annoyed that Apollo scraped Meta and then tried to sell their data. And so you can find a Apollo web scraper in Applify. This one right here, pretty great. And you can use this one. And you can use this to basically pull up a list of companies and people and data in Apollo and build a list. But instead of like enriching that list, and paying Apollo for it, you can simply grab the URL, drop it here in this Apollo scraper, and scrape that URL and get all the data anyway for a much lower cost. Like it's $1.20 for every 1,000 leads. So again, that's pretty great. If you're on a budget and you want to get 1,000 Apollo leads for $1.20 a piece, be my guest. But that's only one scraper. Appify has a lot of different types of web scrapers. So if you spend just a little bit of time getting familiar with web scrapers and API integrations, then you can really save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money. So the whole goal here, though, the whole goal here is to get to a point to where you've built a list. You've built a list of companies and targets that you actually want to reach out to, mostly via cold outreach. I highly recommend going with cold email for a lot of reasons. One, because it's incredibly cost efficient. It's very, very cheap. It's pennies on the dollar when you're using cold email. Also, there's asymmetric upside, because if you try cold calling, which is great, you can definitely do that, but you're always banking on the fact that A, someone's available to take your call, B, no one likes taking phone calls. It's very time intensive, because in order for me to make a phone call, I have to be on the phone. And so it takes my time as well. But with cold email, at least I can do my best to try to get in their inbox. I don't have to be physically present for it. They don't have to be physically present for it. And hopefully we can get a conversion rate somewhere between 3 and 6%. That's kind of standard. So that's the idea. And if you're going to use a cold email platform, the one I like is Instantly. I'll try to come here to the dashboard. Instantly.ai. They're really great. They're one of the best on the market. And what's really great about them is after you've built your your email domains. You can see I got a whole bunch of them here. You can drop them in here. These ones I haven't used in a campaign, but I've dropped them in here for warm up. So if you've heard of anybody mention that you need to warm up your email domains before using them for cold outreach, this is exactly that. You have to make sure you don't get, you're not spamming people and getting shut down. So Instantly has a service on here where you can upload all your domains. You can see all these Sunset Coast domains, and it'll start slowly warming those up over the course of about 3 to 4 weeks. That way, when you start running your campaigns of cold emails, then you don't start bouncing off people's inboxes. But anyway, you can use the Instantly platform here to manage all of your domains, manage all your uniformed inboxes, create your copy, do all your cold email management right here. It's a really great tool. Highly recommend it. And so that's how I would do that. So again, the general process is basically using Clay, sourcing your leads, enriching your leads where it makes sense, using third-party tools like Apollo or Appify if you're trying to save a little bit more money, enriching that data so you can get the best possible information on your target. And then ultimately building a very big list. And usually this list looks like a Google sheet. On this Google sheet, you're going to have the name of the person you're looking for, usually the owner, president, CEO of a company, the name of the company. You're going to have LinkedIn information. You're going to have their, usually I pull that from like LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And then you're going to find the best possible work email you can for them. And then that's your list. And that's what you incorporate into a platform like Instantly so that you can start doing cold outreach. One more thing, though. As we keep going, you can do all those steps, and when you get good at them, you can do them relatively quickly. But one thing that really makes a difference is if you come over here and start automating the process. All of this is tech, so you can automate it. So if you've never heard of make.com, it's time to find out what that is. So this is make.com. It's kind of like Zapier, but way better. It allows you to connect all kinds of different things. This right here is just a very, very, very simple connection that I did, which has a webhook attached to Instantly, so that every time somebody replies to one of my cold emails, that reply will go to Instantly into their unified mailbox, and then the webhook will get notified every time I get a reply. It'll ping it back into this ChatGPT model that then sends me like a distilled version of the message directly into a Slack notification on my phone. So that way, I'm never late. Like every time I get a notification, I'll get a notification on my Slack. It'll say, hey, you got a response to your cold email campaign. It'll tell me which campaign. It'll tell me who responded. Then just a little blurb from the email in a message on Slack, so that I know that someone replied, and I know really, really quickly whether it's, is it good, is it bad, is it, whatever the case may be. So that's one way that you can automate this system. Here's another one. This is N8N. It is essentially the same thing as make.com, but it's a little bit more developer friendly. And so it's a little bit more technical. Now, I don't say that to scare you though, because if you, seriously, if you spend 72 hours learning how to work with APIs, it'll pay massive returns later on. But essentially what this one does is I created a Appify scraper that helps me engage with people on LinkedIn, specifically people who are targets on the list. So basically what I did is I created this Appify integrator. And remember, I showed you the Appify website. So it's a scraper that I found on Appify. It scrapes the list. It gives me a personalized outreach based on the Google Sheet of targets that I've already put together. And then it creates those target outreaches and pitches them back onto LinkedIn through a DM. So obviously, when you're reaching out cold, the best possible return you're going to get is if you can reach out to somebody, if you can DM them on social media, if you can hit them with a cold email, like you want to be able to reach out as many different methods as possible to give you the best chance that they're going to see your message and then reply. Now, they may see it and decide not to reply, which is fine. But if they never see it, then they never get the choice. So you want to try to reach out to them as many times as possible on many different platforms as possible. So highly recommend looking at make.com, N8N. You can automate your entire process using these tools. It's incredible what you can do. You can have all these port directly into a CRM. So that's really important. If you're not using OpenAI, and I mean the API platform, not ChatGPT. ChatGPT is great, but you want to go on the API platform right here so you can actually start using the API integrations into your tools. This will be a game changer for you. So if you're not already doing this, I highly recommend that the documentation is fantastic. There's YouTube videos to walk you through it. It will incredibly upskill your game. A couple more resources that might help you. This is joinsecret.com. If you're not familiar, they give a ton of discounts for software, everything from Make to Stripe to Notion. It's pretty incredible. You get a lot of really good discounts if you're a brand new user. So again, even if stuff that you are using, if you create a brand new account, say you're a brand new searcher, and now I have a brand new Google account or a brand new Microsoft account that is my search account, well, then that's a new account. So you can come in here, use the promos here at Join Secret, and you can get massive discounts on a lot of the software that you were going to use anyway. So that's another small tip I'll throw your way. So again, this was not designed to be a tutorial. I can do that later on, but this is designed to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that I'm using in my cold outreach. And the reason it's important is because you want to spend the time as a brand new searcher to build out the best possible cold outreach platform you can for a lot of reasons. One, you want to try to get that conversion rate as high as possible. The bigger your deal funnel is, the better. The more opportunities, the more shots on goal, the more pitches at bat, like however you want to say it. But the more opportunities that you have. And so you want to build that as much as possible. But then take it one step further. Spend a week or so, learn how to use really good automation tools. Spend a few minutes learning how to use N8N or make.com, how to use these API integrations. Because if you can build up your whole, or at least 95% of your cold outreach, if you can automate that, well, then the beautiful thing there is that now you don't have to waste time on cold outreach and cold automation because it's high leverage, but it's low ROI. Now you have time to actually focus on high ROI activities like attending in-person conferences, doing the unscalable things. Like this is the scalable stuff. This is the stuff you have to do if you really want to build out a big funnel. But this is just to kind of set the playing field. Like it allows you, once you put this leverage in place, to do the other things that are not scalable. Handwritten notes, meeting people in person, like getting lunch with owners. Like these are the things that you can't scale. There's only one of you, but they're very high ROI. And it's very inefficient to do those unscalable things if you haven't first built out the platform that's scalable and it's doing that stuff on your behalf in the background. This is exactly why I talk to searchers about, before moving into off-market and proprietary searching, build the broker network. Build that first. Like build a really strong network of brokers, service professionals, CPAs, wealth management specialists, people who know, like, and trust you, who understand your buy box, and now they see you as a qualified buyer and they're searching on your behalf. That's leverage. So do that first. And obviously good businesses do come on market. So you don't want to opt yourself out of that. So, build the broker network first. And then once that's in place, now you have the freedom and flexibility to start focusing on the proprietary search platform, which is kind of what I talked about today, building out just the bare bones of what a high leverage cold outreach system can look like. And then once that's in place, and both of these things are working for you, and now you're kind of more in maintenance mode and kind of keeping the funnel going, then it frees up your time as the searcher to start doing the unscalable things, the notes, the meetings, the lunches, the conferences, that sort of thing. So I hope this was helpful. There's a lot of people who are asking questions on stuff like this. So I hope that having a visual makes more sense. Sometimes it's hard to see it in text, and everybody's got opinion. This is mine, and different things work for different people. But this is what I'm using right now. So if you've got any questions, please drop those in the chat. This is going to be posted on YouTube. So if you've got questions, leave a comment, and I'll post another one of these tomorrow, and I'll just answer those questions. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.